As I was watching some ESL One Cologne matches, I noticed an interesting example of CT side strat calling. On the 6th round of Faze's match versus Optic, Mixwell picks off Rain in connector, leaving Faze with an early 4v5. In response, Nico gets aggressive Ivy, smoking behind him in an attempt to catch any approaching Optic players off guard. He moves up to an off angle and does not find any Optic members. As one of the 3 entrances to the A bomb site is clear, Faze rotates the remaining 3 players to the inner bomb site. Unfortunately for them, Optic takes A from Popdog and Team Mid, decisively winning the round. But, as Steel reminds us in his video, even the best plays have chances of failure. In any strategic game, decisions are made with the purpose of maximizing the likelihood of success. Bad plays should not be justified because they worked, and good plays should not be condemned because they failed. So the question remains, given the information that Nico obtained, did the rotation increase Faze's chance of success? I should first note my methodology in the data gathering process. I recorded data without consideration for eco rounds or trade kills. While these are undeniably fundamental characteristics of the game, I left these out of my data collection in order to capture general patterns without inserting my arbitrary definitions of what an eco round is and what constitutes a trade. In my consideration of Optic's T-side habits, I recorded either the entrance points players pass through as they push into a site, or, if the player died before the execute occurred, I recorded the position the player died in. All of this data is available in an Excel spreadsheet in the description. For the sake of comparison, let's consider it 100% likely that Faze wins the round if Optic goes B, and 0% likely that Faze wins the round if Optic goes A. While this is not a realistic projection, let's assume to eliminate some variables. Now, by determining the likelihood that Optic goes B or A without a player Ivy, we can determine Faze's likelihood of winning the round. But first, I went to create something to compare this value to, Faze's normal win rate when they are down a player on train. After analyzing over 100 of Faze's CT side rounds, I found that while their overall win rate is 58%, their win rate after losing the first duel dropped to 35%. Even though Train is traditionally a CT-sided map, the first duel is crucial in determining the outcome of the round. Now, moving forward, 35% is the number to beat. If Optic goes B more than 35% of the time without a player Ivy, then this is a good rotation by Faze. Per my analysis of an additional 100 rounds of Optic's T side, the squad has a 45% chance of going B without a player Ivy. In contrast, with a player Ivy, Optic goes A 77% of the time. Personally, I expected these results, but I was expecting a much greater disparity between Faze's normal win rate and the likelihood that Optic goes B. Interestingly, however, Optic rarely sends a player Ivy. The squad only chooses to put a player Ivy 32% of the time. 68% of the time, not a single player dies Ivy or enters a site through Ivy. So, for curiosity's sake, I analyzed another 100 rounds, but this time from a combination of Immortals, Cloud9, Ninjas in Pajamas, SK, Faze, and Liquid, all at ESL One Cologne. I found that other teams generally put players Ivy about 44% of the time, significantly more than Optic's 32%. Despite this increased favor of Ivy, the likelihood that any of these teams go B without a player Ivy is 46%, quite similar to Optic's 45% statistic. This means Faze increased their odds of success against Optic by about 10.5% by rotating towards B. This same figure appears when considering our sample of all teams. However, remember that Optic and teams in general favor the A site, even when they do not send any players Ivy. Theoretically, if Faze stacked towards A, they would increase their chance of success by about 20%. This would mean Faze's win rate when down a player would be within 4 points of their overall win rate, a significant competitive advantage. This is, of course, assuming that Faze could consistently hold A with 4 players, which is again, not realistic. Still, if Faze could hold A about 83% of the time, rotating A would actually have been a better play. Either way, Faze's decision was a calculated risk that improved their chances of success. This video is not designed to conclusively determine whether or not Faze chose the best option, but is instead designed to highlight the importance of calculated risks in winning rounds and winning games. So, how'd I do? This is my first video of this type, so please interact so I can improve any future content. Also, if you have a topic for a future video, please leave that in a comment.